A year ago, I did this tutorial on an intro to web security CTFs. It was removed for inappropriate content. So now I'm going to do this tutorial again.
Basically, it's going to comprise of multiple services or challenges that are put together for you to go out and practice your security skills. The idea is to grab flags, and they're going to be points for you. In a virtual CTF, a flag will look like one of these two probably down here. You're kind of looking for the vulnerability at the beginning. You are given the prompt, and you want to find out, using all the information possible, where do I look for this little flag? How do I get it?
What if I don't know anything about web security? Can I still learn? Yes, you can. We've created a website specifically for this tutorial called CTF.slothparadise.com. On this website, I have a challenge for you. Find all the secret keys on the website. Keys are the equivalent of flags in the normal security CTF, where you'd find the flags in order to get points. All the keys on this website have a similar pattern. Key, curly brace, a few words inside, ending curly brace. Your objective is to find all these keys. There are 6 of them in total. I've given you the first one for free. Now, how do you even get started? Well, know that we have provided you some tips on the front page. View the page source, developer console, cookies. All of the keys on this website, you don't even need to know a programming language, although a couple of keys, it will certainly be easier to know a programming language to find the key. Once you have found all the keys that you can possibly find, I encourage you to copy all the keys, go to the comment section, and type, "Here are the keys that I've found, 5 enters, so that you do not spoil it for everyone else trying to find the keys, and paste the keys that you have found, each on a new line, and post it in the comment section. Afterwards, I'll check the keys, you can watch the entire video, and see if the keys that you found match the keys that I have found. Now on this website as well, for the rest of the video, I'll be showing you how I found the keys. Pause the video and try to find the keys yourself. If you're interested in the source code of the site, you can check out this GitHub link that I'll leave in the description, but please do not check out the source code until you have found all the keys. Now before we get started, I want you to check out this guy. His name is Allan Wirth. He was a student at the same university as me, and he's since graduated, and he is now working at Akamai as a security researcher. When we were students, he was the big CTF guy. He was really interested in security and crypto, had a ton of experiences, and really did well at these CTFs. He introduced many of us in security CTFs. On the site, the first thing that we're going to do is view the page source, getting our first key. Viewing the page source is a good bet when it comes to website security challenges within CTFs. When we view the page source, let's see if we can snoop on anything. My recommendation is always use Control F for the find shortcut in order to find any keys. And since the keys all have the same pattern, you can search for KEY and see if you can find any keys on any of these pages. We see a comment with the second key, and there's our second key. Now we have 2 keys out of 6 down. The second key was simply in the source code of the website on the main page of the website. Most of the time though, the page source will not simply give you out the key in a comment. You'll have to do a little bit more digging, but checking this page source is a phenomenal way of getting started to finding clues about how to find a key. On the About page, we see something interesting. Every 1,000th visitor gets a prize. You are the 2013 visitor to this page. Okay, that's a start. Let's try to refresh the page. Now it says that we are the 2014 visitor to this page. So we know one thing, that every time you refresh the page, every time you visit the page, the counter increases. But you have to visit the page 1,000 times for the surprise. So what do we do about it? Well, first thing that I'm going to do is open up Bash on Windows 10. Recently, in the Windows 10 anniversary update, Bash was put on Windows 10, so now you can use Bash. And I'm going to take full advantage of that. I'm going to make a directory called CTF_Python. MKDIR stands for make directory. Then I'm going to change directory inside it. CD stands for change directory. And I'm going to use Python to script this because I could either one, refresh this page 1,000 times, or I can script with Python. Now, if you do have bash on Windows 10, you can use sudo apt-get install space Python to install Python. You'll have to put in your password for your user and you can install Python, but Python should be automatically installed on every version of bash. To check, you just do bash -- version, and if you see a version number, then you have Python. And I also downloaded and installed Vim with the same command, sudo apt-get install Vim. So I'm going to create a new file, vim space about.py. Every Python file ends with a .py extension. And I'm going to see how am I going to make the script. Now, if you already have programming experience, this will be fairly redundant for you experts out there, but I'm going to really walk through my mindset. Now, Python is all about libraries. You can import libraries with Python because libraries contain provided functions that allow you to do work with just a few words. Now, the thing that I know from the top of my head is there is a library called urllib2. It's an extendable library for opening URLs. That's what we want. But to find this library to begin with, when I was first learning programming, I was just Googling, how do I open a website with Python? And it brings you to this library. The first thing we see on this website, open the URL with a .url open. There are always examples on documentation pages. All you have to do is try Googling and you'll find the solutions to your problems. When you Google, everyone from forums to documentation will provide you the answers to how to do your little special thing. So I find a source code on how to use urllib2, and I can just copy what is on that website over there. I'll leave the link in the description if you cannot see it properly. But basically, it says that I can use urllib2.url open and copy the link. Now, the link says localhost for me because I'm running this locally right now. But if you put in the link for ctf.slotparadise.com, it will accomplish the same thing as I am accomplishing. Make sure that link is in quotes, and then you do a .read parentheses. And I want to print the page because every time you write a script, you want to test things. And so I use print to see what that output will provide me. I use Control-Z to put it into the background, and then I use Python about.py to see the page. Now you can see what just happened. It just printed the website source code. The important thing that we see is it says 2015 visitor. Remember, on the website, when we visited on the browser, it said 2014 visitor, but now we have 2015 visitor. So we just scripted, simple script, use a library so that we could take advantage of URL open to visit the page once. And now I use FG to put the script back on because I had it still open, but I use Control-Z to put it in the background, FG to bring it back. It's like alt-tabbing, basically. Now, what do I want to do with this script? Well, I want to visit the page 1,000 times. Well, how do we do that? First thing that I want to do is there is a programming concept called while loops, and that's the best way to do this. We do a while true. Basically, what this means is that this thing will run infinitely. This thing will never stop. Alright. Alternatively, we could have visited the page exactly 1,000 times, but I'm showing you there are numerous solutions to the same problem. If key in about page, then I want to print the about page when there is a key, because I know that there is a constant pattern to this flag format, to these keys. So all I'm searching is if the key is in the about page. Now, I know that this program will run infinitely and I want it to stop. So I check Python. How do you exit a Python program? and it gives me this link. It says that there's something called sys.exit. This is what I talk about and mean when I mention these libraries. Python is all about libraries, and that's a very useful thing with Python scripting, because there's always a library for something that you might need to do. And in this case, since I'm using a while loop with true, it will run infinitely. But if I import sys, which someone answered in this Stack Overflow question, I can just use sys.exit parentheses 0 parentheses to exit the code. After I save that file, I can run the program again, and when key is inside the about page, it will print the about page. And we can see that once key was in the about page, it said you are the 3000th visitor and sees the key. Now we have accomplished the third key. The key is 999 problems but a reload ain't one. Keys tend to have a little joke or a trendy meme in them. And if we refresh the page, we can see that we are the 3001 visitor. So we know that this script visited the page until it found key inside it, which happened to be a multiple of 1000, 3000. Now, if we visit the next page on the navigation bar, we see walled garden. What is walled garden? Well, it says solve 1024 captions to get a reward. First, select a name to get started. I'll just use Allan's name, Allan Wirth. And it says to copy the value to the field below, which provides you a randomly generated CAPTCHA. Let's see what happens when we do this manually. We submit it manually, and it says, okay, it's correct. You solved the CAPTCHA correctly. Now what? Well, I am going to assume that for our username, Allan Wirth, we have solved one CAPTCHA. And the server has to be keeping track of this. When you try to solve challenges on a web security CTF, you partly have to assume that the challenge is working in its integrity. Let's try to find some clues. Let's look at the link. Well, this is interesting. It uses a question mark and then has name equals the name that we provided and the CAPTCHA equals the CAPTCHA that we provided. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the link has an effect to the submission of our CAPTCHA. So let's create a script to do this, because I could submit 1024 CAPTCHAs, but using a scripting language like Python is much easier. We'll use the same two libraries that we used before. URLlib2 will come in handy for opening URLs, and sys will come in handy for exiting if we are looping through the program. Let's try to submit a CAPTCHA by a link. But before we do that, let's see what happens when we use name equals just a name without a CAPTCHA. Okay, nothing happens. But if we add at the end of the link and CAPTCHA equals and copy and paste the CAPTCHA that we see on this page, let's see what happens. Well, after we enter that link, we see that the CAPTCHA is correct and it solved the CAPTCHA, which means that if we format the link correctly, then it successfully submits a CAPTCHA. All we have to do is keep on submitting the correct link with a correct CAPTCHA. And I did it once more to show you that the CAPTCHA is correct. Now we have a lead to the problem. What I suggest you doing is whenever you see a challenge in a web security challenge, you try to break it in as many ways as possible, and you'll find clues in how the website actually works. Here, we try to submit it without a CAPTCHA, and then it generates us the same page, provides us a CAPTCHA. But we noticed a trend that the site used the link to submit that request, to submit valid CAPTCHAs. On our script, we are going to copy the first part of the link without the CAPTCHA, because what my plan is, in my mindset, I'm thinking that if I visit this part of the page with just name equals Allan Wirth, then I can continually find CAPTCHAs and put this thing in a loop where the CAPTCHA will be entered into the link each time. If we print the contents of the site without the CAPTCHA, it gives us a CAPTCHA on this line over here. And this line is interesting because it has the pre-tags. Now the pre-tags is interesting because pre-tags are not typically used unless for a certain purpose in a website. And that comes from just knowledge of HTML, because typically people use p, divs, etc. But the pre-tag is usually a section tag that's not used too often. And we can see if we compare the entire site, the pre-tag only appears at the captcha, where the captcha appears. So I'm thinking that the developer did this on purpose. How do we grab that captcha from that site? That's a huge string. Well, there's something called split. And I was just looking, how do we split a string apart? And I Googled it because I know Googling is my friend. And now I see this special function that all strings have. If I split by a space, for instance, it will split this sentence by spaces. So that means that we can split a string by any identifier. In this case, we want to split this string by the pre-tags. We are getting somewhere. Alright, so we have a string walled garden. That's our website. But as a precaution, we're going to make sure that this walled garden variable is a string. So I just put type parentheses around walled garden, and it says that it's type string, str. So all we have to do now is split it by this pre-tag, and then also split it by the ending pre-tag, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's just take it one step at a time and start printing stuff to debug our script. This is how my mindset typically goes when I'm trying to solve a security challenge. I build my script one by one to make sure it works. So I'm going to give it a better name than this. I'm going to call it first split. And I am going to take advantage of that example that I saw from Googling of how the split function works. I'm going to use dot split parentheses quote pre quote, which is basically the heading pre-tag. I just copy what I see and then do it in my script. And to make sure that this actually works, I should print first split variable out. So I am going to print this variable out, and I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to run it to see if it actually works as expected. Now I see this blob, right? But what we should be trying to find is that there should be a place where, hey, our script is there, and there's a comma separating our part of our captcha that we're looking for. Now there's the second part. Okay, it's split into two big chunks, which is split into an array. And the array, the first part, 0, which is the first element of an array, is all the junk. But if we print just 1, we can see that this is the stuff that we want. But hey, there's still the ending part of it. Well, all we have to do is split it again. We just split the ending tag of pre. So all we have to do is take this new variable, which is just first underscore split element 1, and call it second split, so that we can split it a second time. We're going to split it a second time at the ending tag pre, in quotes. It's a little bit hard to read that because it is in dark red, but if you full screen it, I'm sure that you can read it properly. And if we print second split, just to make sure that, this is all working as expected, and we use Python, we can see that the first element in this array is the captcha, and then the second element is all that junk that we split out. Alright, we're getting somewhere. So we know that second split should be the first element, and first element of an array always starts with 0. So if we just did second underscore split 0, it would work. Now we want to make sure that if we visit the URL with the captcha, this thing is actually working. So I'm going to copy that URL lib to .url open with the website. And with the same username, I am going to add and captcha equals, because that's how the format of the link when submitting a captcha is formatted. And I'm going to add the captcha using the plus after the string to add the value of the captcha. We can just compare to double check that this is how the links are formatted. And I said numerous times and repeated myself that this website, I noticed that formatting the link correctly will submit a CAPTCHA for us. So we take our variable where we know the CAPTCHA is existing, and then we just add it. We just put it at the end of that long URL. And we use the .read again, and let's print it to make sure that at least it will say CAPTCHA is correct on the web page, because we're just printing the website with a CAPTCHA. Walled garden with CAPTCHA is what we are looking to see if it works. And if we run the program again, at the bottom we see CAPTCHA correct. That's new. We notice that it also gives us a new CAPTCHA as well. So we know that this is a repeatable process. We can script this. We can make it automated. We don't have to submit 1024 CAPTCHAs manually, which is good for us because we wouldn't want to waste our time doing that manually anyways. And like the first challenge with the about page, we will use a while loop to loop this again. Before I get to that, I am going to erase this variable and just reuse some variables so that we don't have to use a second variable. Instead of using walled garden with CAPTCHA, I'm just going to call it walled garden, but we're going to follow the same format. I'm going to use while true, and I need to space this out a little bit. Python is dependent on spaces and or tabs. And to format this, I need walled garden visited every single time. And if key is in walled garden, then I want to print a page, because we know from the pattern of how this website is developed that key is always the pattern that you want to find in order to find a key. And we use the same thing that we use in the about script, where I just exit once I find a key because that's all we're looking for. I use the variable walled garden here again because I can repeat the variable instead of using new variable, which would take extra space. And now I'm going to run this program and see if it gets these new CAPTCHAs every single time I run the program. Let's make sure that I save this and run the program. And it is going to be submitting links with the CAPTCHAs from each of these individual pages in order until the 1024 CAPTCHAs are solved. And here's the key. It says, God, I hope you scripted this. Another funny joke. Check. We have found our fourth key. If we visit walled garden again and we refresh the page even without solving a CAPTCHA, we can see that since we are using the same user as we are in our Python script, it gives us the key down there. And it's the same thing that we saw in the print message of our Python script. Let's visit the home page again, because I don't see any more pages. I don't see anywhere I can find more keys. Where are the last two keys? Well, always check the page source when you're at a loss of where to find keys. Always view the page source. And we see a comment that's interesting. There's a comment for a page hidden.php. Okay, that's a start. Let's check if it actually exists. It does actually exist. It was a hidden file. Developers who make CTF challenges like to do interesting and tricky things like this. A little hidden file you can see, and it was just in a comment. If we view the page source of this file, we see that there's nothing that we actually can find. It just says, who are you? You aren't admin. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at our front page again. That might give us some clues. We gotta look at the tips. What did the tips say? Well, if we look at the tips, it says that we should always view the page source. Okay. But then it says at the third tip, watch for cookies on the web pages. Sometimes they're used for authentication. Clearly, we need to be admin. Clearly, that's a authentication problem. How do we mess around with cookies? There's an awesome cookie changer plugin for Chrome. It's a Chrome extension, and it's called EditThisCookie. I'll leave a link in the description, but I highly recommend you to download this Chrome extension because it's very useful. It allows you to change cookies on a site to manipulate the cookies. And I will add this to Chrome. and check if there are any cookies that we can change on that page, the hidden.php page. After we install EditThisCookie, we'll refresh the hidden.php page and see how does EditThisCookie work. Well, after we refresh the page, okay, it's still the same way. It says go away, you aren't admin. But we can click on this cookie icon and it says that there is a cookie called user. Okay, that's a big start. We're getting somewhere here. And the value is unknown. Okay, well, it says we aren't admin, so we type in admin. And we'll see if this works. Well, let's give it a check mark with the green check mark at the bottom. And after that, the cookie is applied with the change, but we need to refresh the page. And it says welcome admin because the site is checking for cookies on the site, and there's a cookie called user, and it's just checking if the user is admin, and it gives us the key, hack the planet. If you get that reference, leave in a comment that you get the hack the planet reference. Alright, we found our 5th key. Now how about our last key? Well, always check the source code. We always get back to page source. And we see something interesting here. We see something called info.xml. It's very useful to just check any files that exist on the website. And when we check it, it says that there's an error. Well, that's kind of weird. Let's check the page source. Info.xml is typically a file used to generate a type of text document that will be used for different files. But we found the key inside it. And there it is. All XML is garbage. Wow, we have found the 6 keys. Well, that was an adventure, and I hope it was very useful doing this tutorial because web security CTFs and security CTFs are very interesting. Be sure to visit Allan's Twitter account. I'll leave a link in the description, and it would be so awesome if you could do it for me, but also do it for him. Reply to him and say, thanks for creating those drills for web security CTFs. They're really helpful. Or just say like, oh, I watched this video on your security drills on web security CTFs. They're awesome. Allan was always super helpful when I was a student in college, and it'd be great and phenomenal if we could show him some love. He's really big on Twitter, and leaving a tweet at him thanking him for those web security drills would be just the best thing ever because he'll definitely read it, and I know it'll make him smile. Thanks for watching, everyone.